What's the darkest, but nobody talks about it, reality of the modern world? Story 1. That people have become so reliant on media recommendations online that the majority of people are quickly becoming less and less capable of finding things for themselves and less discerning of new information brought to them. It's bad enough I have to Google X brand Reddit or ask on forums, then worry about companies sitting on here shilling out their product brand without even needing to pay humans to astroturf. Bots are cheap, and with advancements in AI, it'll be more convincing every day. Dead internet theory will become real, and traditional forums are going to become just battlegrounds between different corporations and political interests. Story 2. Endless consumerism is unsustainable. Most jobs are bullcrap jobs, and people are addicted to buying useless plastic crap they don't need, and it's killing the planet. But put the brakes on all that, and everything also goes to crap. But the super rich will enjoy lavish lifestyles no matter what. This is one thing that truly freaks me out. The US is completely deindustrialized, and everyone has been told to go to college and get an office corporate job for decades now. I'm in the IT field taking care of the systems these people use. There are millions and millions of people pushing emails around, tweaking PowerPoints, etc. And many are getting paid reasonable amounts or even large amounts to do it. Those people buy houses, buy cars, take vacations, and consume just like factory workers with stable jobs did. But 90% of those jobs could just be dumped. You don't need assistant deputy social media coordinators or vice directors of customer engagement or whatever. But we just don't have anything else for educated people. The other 10% are in huge danger of being automated with AI. Suddenly, you're going to have the vast majority of consumers unemployed, unable to buy things, and the only jobs that people actually need are service jobs we've assigned minimum wage or a low status to. This will be the first societal shift that leaves everyone except a few business owners worse off. All these companies who are firing all their engineers and plowing the money into AI in hopes of having zero employee, all executive companies aren't thinking about what happens when a mob of 200 plus million office workers gets desperate and isn't going to polish their cars and walk their pets for minimum wage. Story 3. We currently have enough food to feed everyone, yet 9 million people die from starvation annually. It's a distribution issue, not a quantitative one. The works of the roots of the vines of the trees must be destroyed to keep up the price, and this is the saddest, bitterest thing of all. Carloads of oranges dumped on the ground. The people came for miles to take the fruit, but this could not be. How would they buy oranges at 20 cents a dozen if they could drive out and pick them up? And men with hoses squirt kerosene on the oranges, and they are angry at the crime, angry at the people who have come to take the fruit. A million people hungry, needing the fruit and kerosene sprayed over the golden mountains. And the smell of rot fills the country. Burn coffee for fuel in the ships. Burn corn to keep warm, it makes a hot fire. Dump potatoes in the rivers, and place guards along the banks to keep the hungry people from fishing them out. Slaughter the pigs and bury them, and let the putrescence drip down into the earth. Story 4. The existence of plastic. We still have people alive now that were around before plastic was even a common thing. Yet, it's found itself in every organ, in every animal in the world, in the deepest depths of the ocean. It's in your blood, your brain, your heart, your testicles, and ovaries. Humans have existed for 200,000 years, and plastic only began being mass-produced in the 1950s. And we still have no problem making this material that never truly decomposes. It's in the water you drink, all of the food you eat, because it's convenient. For now, it is an existential threat to all life on Earth. Yet no one cares. No one talks about it. Story 5. Americans don't really seem to have any idea how messed up the cartel situation in Mexico is. It's wild that people have been getting mutilated Hellraiser style and being put on gruesome display for several years now, not to mention the extortion, intimidation, and plain old homicide. But people's response to that seems to be a half-hearted, oh, that sucks. There are political allies and our neighbors, but very few people seem to care about their plight. Yeah, I had a friend who went to Mexico, met a dude that worked for a cartel, talked to me about how cool he was, that he was just a guy doing the only thing he could do to get by, etc., etc. My response was, right on. Well, just keep in mind, he might be cool, but if his boss requires your head, your opinion of him might change real quick. Because good guy or not, bet he would rather be an alive jerk than a dead cool guy. Story 6. We're all going to die. Nothing we do actually matters and will be forgotten by the third generation as if we were never here. This is all age old. What's modern is that the human population is so large, we're that much more insignificant as individuals. Just another number, another cog in the machine, a slightly different copy of another. There was a potter in Pompeii who thought the same thing, and since then, thousands of archaeologists and then tourists have explored her home, wondering about her life, listening raptly as others explain. Incorrectly, I'm sure. What her life was like back in the before times. All of us are forgotten, yes, but we lay down the bones of the future without even knowing it, just through the process of living. Everything that comes after builds upon everything that came before, even the things that will never matter. The end comes for everything, sooner or later. I don't know if that's bad or good, but I know that it is, and maybe that's okay. Story 7. We were fooled into believing individual actions can change system. You can be a thrifty vegan who didn't produce any waste and avoided consuming plastic in the last 10 years. But it's all for nothing if you don't actively fight to change the system. Your own consumption has no global impact whatsoever. A person eating from one-use plastic containers every day, but who organizes and lobbies to change laws, is doing way more than you. Also, while we should absolutely continue to try to systematically reduce and rethink our consuming behaviors, by changing laws that will fund research, new materials, and make manufacturing plastics illegal, for example. The time has come to start also preparing for the impending climate disasters. We are past the solution goalpost. We need to save what's possible, while also preparing for what's already coming. Story 8. This is probably the downhill side of our civilization. Not a doomsayer, but we are not improving our brains as a species. Since that is our main evolutionary advantage, any loss of function is a loss of that advantage. Between lead and microplastics and who knows what in the environment and our lack of emphasis on education and critical thinking worldwide, we stand a real risk of becoming a race of drooling idiots destroying ourselves with our own old technology. Also, we are completely insignificant to the universe. Story 9. Most people do not possess basic math or critical thinking skills to understand the modern world and are susceptible to media manipulation. For instance, ITT, some people are sad to learn that the number of slaves is higher today. A few Google searches in 6th grade math would tell you in the Middle Ages there was 1 in 6 chance. A random person is a slave, while it is 1 in 150 in modern days. A supposedly uplifting fact of slavery rate decline is presented in a way that makes people upset instead. This is media manipulation on a micro scale, and the same is happening on a macro scale every day. Story 10. In the US, it's car dependent. Most problems in the US can be linked to it. Social isolation in the suburbs, lack of community spaces, microplastics from tires, other health issues due to immobility, sprawl destroying the environment, a lack of housing due to demand for suburban homes, higher prices due to parking lot minimums, literal wars being fought to keep oil prices low, and of course, global warming. People identify so much with their cars at this point that the mention of any alternative system drives people, no pun intended, nuts. Story 11. Realpolitik. Nations act in their best interests, not because of friendliness and goodwill. Don't doubt that matters, but it's not the number one reason or priority. For example, if Russia ends the war tomorrow, within a few months to a year, the EU will start buying their energy again. Or how people conveniently forget the CCP's atrocities, child labor, oppressive social credit system, and constant messing over of other nations, and are immediately open to trading with them, because a big orange, who would look like an angel compared to Xi's resume, made a mean tweet in all caps. For example, The Philippines has been constantly threatened by China over disputed islands. They've water cannons fishermen on canoes, built airstrips on the islands they very clearly don't own, fly their fighter jets over PH airspace, etc. for the last decade or so. Constant humiliation. And to this day, the Philippines' largest trading partner is, you guessed it, China. And as of a few days ago, they made a deal with China to remove missile systems. In exchange, China stops the harassing. I've seen this merry-go-round happen multiple times over the last decade. Story 12. By estimates of experts in the field, there is a not insignificant 10 to 25% chance that a misaligned artificial general intelligence, AGI, or an artificial superintelligence, ASI, will cause human extinction. There are any number of scenarios under which this would be a logical, if genocidal step for these digital brains to take. If you're seeing the headlines, AI is now basically a for-profit arms race with safety concerns getting pushed into the background. The achievement of ASI is called the singularity, because we have literally no idea what these people are creating and what happens after they do. ASI could cure all diseases and help us stabilize the climate and allow us to live for 600 years, or it could wipe us out completely. And we're all just along for the ride with AI tech bros and militaries at the wheel. Buckle up. Story 13, Global Warming versus Near Worldwide. Multiple fireworks days, multiple cars, producing more cell phones with slave labor every year than we need in a decade. The huge push for AI and crypto, which seems to be just the production of waste heat. 3-year-old tablets cost almost the same as they did when new, while new tablets cost times more. But they all run the same apps pretty much equally well. The constant negativity about every single thing in existence. You can't like new Star Trek even though all the evidence points to it being popular. Everyone seems to have lost 1 IQ point per year for the past 2 decades, including myself. Every single thing has more than doubled in price, but it all has to be paid for with one wage that hasn't. Internet 2005 versus Internet 2025. People around 45 are the last people who will remember life before cell phones and the internet. Who will remember cheap houses? Oddly enough, our parents don't seem to want to acknowledge how much easier they had it out of some unwarranted pride, while everyone younger than us just doesn't believe it. How many people in other parts of the world never had cheap houses? Worst of all, nobody knows what is on kids' YouTube or where kids are getting their information. Half the world gave Google their kids' data, their own data, and teachers' data in exchange for Google Classroom, and some days I see classes of kids watching multiple ads. The fact that this list barely scratches the surface, ignoring all the racial issues and crazy amounts of other horrible bullcrap going on, I'd just as soon not get into after all of that. Why'd you crack this door? Story 14, I'm alternating between these two lessons I've learned over the last 10 years. First, politeness doesn't equal morality and means nothing if it doesn't come from your heart. Second, if you go against the principles you claim to uphold, it doesn't really matter how you explain your actions to yourself, even if it seems totally justified. What people call gray morality is simply a convenient way to pat yourself on the head and avoid taking real responsibility. Story 15, a more personal answer, but everyone in my family and everyone around me knows that I've cheated all through high school and college. My diploma and degree are fake because I didn't actually put anything into earning them. I never got caught or punished for anything I did. After college, I got a job at a hazardous waste disposal site, which means an idiot like me is at least partially in charge of deciding how to deal with things like hospitals, laboratories, and household waste chemicals and meds. If you had any hope for the environment, remember that someone like me is deciding whether I can send forever chemicals like PCBs to be burned in a cement factory or packed up and shipped to a different facility. Story 16. This whole society is BS. You go to school to become a slave, not to learn valuable skills for life. Most of the things they teach you could learn better when you're older, but you are not taught to self-teach. You are taught to depend upon an authority figure, someone to teach you. You're not taught how to teach either. Teachers barely know what they're talking about. It's incomplete knowledge. This is because teachers are like soldiers. They need to be cheap to train. Remember, School is for slavery. While the fact that some kids are naturally faster or smarter than others is true, it's only a temporary thing. Grouping kids by age reinforces this ridiculous prejudice that makes inept teachers consider some kids to be problematic. The system needs people that think they are below it. The police are there to protect the system, not you. The system. They seem on your side when your interests are aligned. The system evolved. There's no one cabal that controls the world. There's stochastic analysis leading to seeing opportunities. Story 17. The pollution we produce isn't being properly taken care of. Most corporations don't actually recycle unless it's being strictly mandated by multiple levels of government. Plastics and artificial materials have been spread so far and wide, they find samples of it in the tissue and fluids of the human body, alongside a new type of rock that has integrated plastics called plastics tones. Severe corruption in the government in most nations that is subtle with long-lasting impact. Rooting out any corruption is becoming more difficult as it is spreading to law enforcement and internal affairs, to the point where corrupt actions are viewed as normal, and any action to call it out is shut down by media, the government, or indoctrinated citizens. In a few nations, it has been deemed easier to live with injuries and illnesses because the cost of healthcare is too much to bear. It is slowly becoming a privileged service to the wealthy. Story 18. We were born into a capitalist system where the rules aren't properly explained. You're raised on hopes and dreams, and the reality is selfish and greedy. You're just supposed to figure this out and the way to cope with how horrible it is. Our system weeds people out who don't fit its intended path by how it functions, and does not care what happens to them once they've failed. That is, homelessness, criminals, mentally ill, elderly, etc. And our police, whose stated goal is to protect and serve, a motto that's missing the most important part, helps to create an illusion that they're there for the people. They are only meant to protect and serve property and power. Without those, they do not serve you. And all of this requires critical thinking to understand, which is intentionally not taught in schools. Not to mention, school is designed to create good workers first and foremost. So you're prepared to be a cog in the machine without anyone ever informing you of this fact. Again, just have to figure it out on your own. It's all smoke and mirrors designed to keep you from realizing how it controls every facet of your life, and it will never care about you as an individual, despite needing you and your labor more than anything else that contributes to that system, as one part of the larger whole of humans and their labor. Due to those at the top, the many and their labor are slaves to capitalism. To serve those at the top, all we do is move money around so they can collect and consolidate it. It's always been a class war. They're just really damn good at hiding it under capitalism. We are seeing the effects of unrestrained capitalism in real time. When will enough be enough? Story 19. Most of our jobs are unnecessary. We don't actually need such high levels of employment in modern economies. If we wanted to, we could hand out money for free, let employment fall, and watch production increase anyway. In other words, our entire economy could be a lot more efficient in its use of labor. A smaller number of firms could produce everything we want or need with a small portion of the population actually employed. This vision of the economy is technologically feasible, but socially unacceptable to us. We passionately believe the average person should earn their living somehow. So, we've engineered a system of maximum employment instead. Essentially, we use macroeconomic policy to boost market employment as disguised welfare policy. This system wastes natural resources and wastes our time in superfluous employment. We do need the income these jobs pay out, but society doesn't actually need all these jobs. If we had another way of distributing income to the average person, we could drastically reduce the labor market's footprint without any deleterious effect on production or consumer outcomes. Story 20. Today's society isn't as progressive as it presents itself. PPL keeps saying what happened almost 100 years ago can't ever happen again because they learned from past mistakes. But they let the first pebbles start rolling, and if they're not stopped soon, it might turn into a landslide. Lots of PPL don't realize that, in the past, PPL also turned away from dangers to human rights, and that they are literally doing the exact same thing in today's day and age. And it's not just in one country, you can see it in every continent. No matter how developed humans will become, they can never defy their nature of oppression. Even though a lot of people, including me, wish it was different. Sorry for my bad English. Story 21. People always brag about hypothetically being the hero and doing something. But in my experience, most people are a bystander. I'm not sure if it's the area I'm from, but I've seen relatives say heinous things to other relatives at the dinner table, and people just keep eating and minding their business. And this has happened with multiple families, especially if it's an older relative. People will post photos of Germans in public and say, if I were there, I'd punch him. Except they most likely wouldn't. Americans don't even care what we do to other countries as long as it doesn't affect their personal comfort. And that's why everything is falling apart. And it will stay falling apart until it hits us personally, because comfort comes before everything else. I'm not sure about the rest of the world, but America is self centered and apathetic. Story 22. American healthcare is not in your favor at all. As someone working in it, the system is so deeply messed up. A torn mess of people who actually want to do good and help people, and the administrators, health insurance companies, and for profit businesses that want to make money over people's health. Being able to look behind the curtain with my job currently and see the money side is sick. Healthcare products such as stents, pacemakers, meds, etc., all marked up hundreds of percent over what the hospital actually pays for it. Makes me want to actively barf. All charged well over what they are worth for profit, and in my opinion, the bigger issue for insurance. Insurance companies truly are evil, or at the most friendly I can muster, deeply broken. First off, only 80% of all money that insurance companies take in has to be used for patient care. That leaves a fifth to be used on employees and pay the fat cats at the top. Second, insurance denies many procedures and meds, deeming them non essential, often with no physician making that choice, making patients jump through hoops to get basic care. Third, they hardball what they will actually pay for everything. Let's say a hip replacement is 10 grand. Insurance says, no, I will only pay for $5,000. So, what does the hospital do? They raise the price of the whole surgery to over 20 grand to get the money needed to recoup the cost of the procedure and make some people rich. What does that do? Makes it all way more expensive for everyone, especially for those with no insurance. Hence, an aspirin costing dozens of dollars when it costs cents to produce. The problem carries over to Medicare and Medicaid, too. Story 23. I think that people don't have nearly as much free will as they think they do. Governments, churches, advertising, and media companies form in our minds things that we think we came up with on our own, but really didn't. Whatever we are exposed to, especially at a young age, has a huge impact on how we perceive the world and the people around us. It gives us the ability to condone many atrocities that you normally would not. If people don't think like us, or act like us, or believe what we believe, it somehow becomes acceptable to do whatever we want to those people. I always thought this was something from the past. Things that happened to people that were less educated or less aware. I am referring to Stalin, Vietnam, Japan, Latin Americans, Native Americans, to name just a few. But over the past few years, I realized that this just isn't the case. I am referring to so many other countries in the past few years. It is human nature and something we have to fight very hard not to accept. People can convince themselves of just about anything if they try hard enough and can't get enough people to agree with them.